So yeah, you spend a lot of time working on Model United Nations, um, but you're also interested in the United Nations itself. So do you want to tell me about your engagement with Model United Nations and why you think it's important and what you've done?
Okay, yeah, so I had three experiences till now in Model United Nations, and I have a fourth one coming up in April. So the ones I've done before were in Spain. One was my first one was in Barcelona. It was hosted by the St. Peter's School Barcelona, and I represented the Russian Federation in the Security Council. So it was a very important role.
Yeah.
And it was my first Model United Nations, and I didn't know much about it at that point. But my teacher, my English teacher who went with us to Barcelona, really believed in me. So he said I should do my best, and he thinks I'll do well. So I ended up doing well. I ended up receiving an honorary mention, which was really unexpected for me, as it was my first
Hmm.
Model United Nations. And well, we discussed kind of the um, peacekeeping and peace building operations around the world, also using AI, because the whole topic of the whole Model United Nations was AI and basically how the world would act in 2030. So that was really interesting for me.
Yeah.
And then my second experience was in Madrid. Um, I was representing the United States this time
Uh-huh.
in the ECOSOC, and we talked about de-dollarization. So it was something really relevant to my country, as obviously the dollar is kind of the dominant currency right now in the world, and most of the countries try to um, convince everybody else to go against the dollar, so against my country. So I had to do a really good job to defend myself and to find reasons why the dollar should still be the dominant currency,
Mhm.
especially the BRICS countries like Russia, Brazil, India. They try to really fight against me in
Mhm.
that kind of sense, diplomatic sense. So yeah, I didn't manage to convince them to stay on the dollar, but obviously some countries like Ecuador are reliant on the dollar still, no matter if there's other currencies that are more important. They're kind of reliant on it, so they can't really do much at this point in terms of changing their currency.
Mhm.
Yeah, and my third experience was actually being a chair at a Model United Nations, so a more important, responsible role where I had to make sure everybody debated according to the rules and procedures. So yeah, and the one that is coming up in February is actually in London, so it's going to be the London International Model United
Uh,
Nations,
right.
a really big one, the biggest I've been so far, and I've already been assigned a country. I'm going to represent Spain, and there's going to be two topics, and one of them is actually dealing with hypertourism, which is also really relevant to Spain right now. People in Barcelona protesting and not wanting their flats to be
Right.
rented to tourists
Mhm.
because obviously the native people who live in cities like touristy cities like Barcelona are not um, are not being able to like buy a property because it's too expensive due to tourists kind of living all over the city and renting. So yeah.
So the London one, as you say, is a well-known international one. So how did you get? Are you representing? Because you're at Warwick University, aren't you?
I'm a student at University of Warwick.
Yeah. So are you representing Warwick, or are you doing this on your own?
No, so the Society of Model United Nations here at Warwick that I'm part of is kind of um, advertising the London International Model UN, and the ones who actually are part of the society and are willing to go
Right.
um, are having the opportunity to go,
Yeah.
obviously, and we're all kind of being separated when once we get there. So
Right.
everybody's representing a different country in a
Yes.
different committee.
Yes. And how long does it last? It's a couple of days, is it? Or is it a few more days?
It's from the 20th to the 22nd of February,
Right.
so 3 days and two
Yeah.
nights.
Yeah. And you're having to pay for all the expenses yourself, I take it, are you?
Yeah, so the University of Warwick kind of does a subsidy for us, but it's really little part of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
pay of the actual payment. So the rest of it will have to be paid by ourselves, and obviously the staying there during the night also being
Yeah.
paid by us, and the train to London also paid
Mm,
by us.
mm, mm.
So yeah, it's quite expensive, but hopefully it's going to be worth it.
Well, you enjoy the experience, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
So, um, but you obviously do enjoy it because you wouldn't keep doing it and spending your time and money
Yeah,
on
yeah.
it.
It's really fun actually. Yeah. Although I study management at University of Warwick, which is not really related to that kind of stuff, I do have an interest in kind of the diplomacy and the international relations between countries. I try to kind of stay updated on the news and stuff like that.
Right. And so going to the United Nations, what's your opinion about? Well, I mean, we know Donald Trump thinks it's a load of rubbish, and in fact, I'm working on an article based on a discussion on the radio last night where the public were asking politicians about different questions, and the politicians mostly said the United Nations is a failure and etc. etc. So I'm trying to write an article at the moment um, explaining that what it does because the United Nations does a hell of a lot. It feeds millions of people. It provides lots of um, ideas for medicines and people just don't. Yeah, when people hear about United Nations, if they know anything, this is the average citizen. If they know anything about it at all, well, they might know about the General Assembly, but it's the Security Council which features in most discussions. And the Security Council is a bit of a disaster because, these five countries have got a veto over everything, including America. So Donald Trump vetoes a lot and then blames the United Nations for not being very effective. Um, but people don't know about all the fantastic work that they do. So, I'm trying to write an article explaining all that. But I mean, what's your opinion of the UN?
Yeah, I think it's obviously it's a good idea for it to exist. That's why it was created. So it's better to have such an association or organization than not having it. But I think I agree to some extent that it's not really good in terms of solving massive world issues right now. So, for example, as you said in the Security Council, that's completely true. Like, um, there's only 5 countries that have a veto, and it's maybe outdated because countries like India, who have over 1 billion people,
Mm,
play a massive role in global trade and stuff like that. And obviously, if there is a war in India or India is one of the participants, then it kind of affects all over the world because India produces things. There's massive agreements with India, and therefore that gets affected. The balance in the world kind of breaks. So I think India should maybe be one of the countries that has a veto as well. So maybe it should be added. And countries like Brazil, countries like Indonesia, who are really growing economically in the last few years and also in population, maybe they should be considered as well. Maybe we should try and think of a new veto rule. So maybe there should be at least two veto countries to kind of um, cancel the resolution. Um,
Yes.
there should be a change.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not the a qualified guy
Yeah.
to talk about it, but in my opinion, there should be some type of change
Yeah.
in that kind of veto
Yeah.
rule.
I mean, the people are talking and have been talking for quite a long time about how the veto should be reformed. Your suggestion of requiring two countries to try to veto something, so it's a provisional veto. One country can't veto on its own; it would need two. That's I haven't heard that idea suggested before, and to me that sounds quite an interesting idea. Was this your idea, or have you heard about it before?
So basically, kind of, it was one of the training sessions in the Model United Nations Society at Warwick, and we were divided by teams to come up with a solution, and my team came up with that solution to the kind of veto thing.
Right.
Yeah. I also think so. A second thing I wanted to talk about is that um, the UN is being really lenient on their kind of rules. So obviously, um, a resolution that is done in any committee is kind of a recommendation and not a set rule to follow. And I think that is not really correct because sometimes the issues discussed are really important. And therefore, if a resolution is being made, then all members have to accept it and follow it. It should not only be a recommendation in some cases that are like really important topics.
Now,
Um, so for example, a resolution is being made and
where,
then
whereabouts?
like General Assembly, let's say, or
Okay.
yeah, and obviously I understand it's just a recommendation, but then there's countries like United States or Russia or other big countries that um, struggle to follow the points being made in that resolution, so they just completely ignore it. And then, well, I think what's the point of making a resolution? What's the point of um, placing all the leaders in one room and then discussing it and spending money on those conferences if some countries just completely ignore the points made in those resolutions?
Well, because countries have sovereignty, don't they?
Obviously, they do, but I think if it's something really important being discussed on the table, then it's a good idea to at least somehow comply to those rules. I understand of the sovereignty, but you know, United Nations was made initially to prevent another world war from happening, right?
Hmm.
And well, there's many opinions, but I think right now we're um, we're in the moment of World War III. It's not using weapons, but there's so many conflicts going around the world, and it's so tense. Like, um, I don't think there was another point in history or um, points in history when it was so tense. There's things that need to be solved, like, for example, the persecution of Christians in some Muslim countries right now happening in the world. So there are many issues to be solved, and it's like, all the sanctions being put on Iran and Russia right now. It's like there were never so many sanctions put on a single country like there are right now in Russia. So we're kind of in the Cold War kind of started again,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But unfortunately, you know, countries can do whatever they want. And
exactly.
when you
Yeah,
get people like Putin and Trump, I mean, then there are going to be problems, and that we've certainly got problems at the moment. And I mean, they're because they're major countries, they can cause major problems. But you're right. There's certainly a lot of problems. Um, yeah, I mean, this idea of having in the Security Council requiring two countries to vote for a veto before it becomes operative is an idea I haven't heard of. Um, and perhaps what we should do is try and get some sort of summary of what possibly could happen to make the United Nations more effective. I mean, I think when you talk about the ineffectiveness of United Nations, you might be talking about Security Council failing to stop emergencies because of the veto, or you might be talking about one of its many, many agencies not having enough money to do what needs to be done and therefore failing, to do it. But I mean, you can only address one issue at a time. Perhaps what we ought to do is have some sort of exploration or, maybe a page on the website dealing with how the Security Council could be reformed. I'm sure that over the years there's lots of different suggestions. And in fact, last year, the United Nations Association in the UK had a meeting. They have an annual meeting, which I went to, and other branches sent delegates to, and they had yet another idea of how the veto could be reformed, and they're working on their idea. So yeah, perhaps what we need an article. Not sure if you're interested um, in writing articles for the website, or are you too busy?
Yeah, I already wrote two articles.
You've already written two articles. That's
Yeah,
right.
so it was about my experience at
Yeah,
Model United Nations.
that's right. That's right. I was wondering if you were interested in writing another one. And what I could do is invite people to, we've got this WhatsApp groups, and we could invite people to contribute that way. But you might want to think about it as well. It's certainly not a good time for the world and for peace, but these things are not hopefully not going to last forever, and they're hopefully also not going to develop into some sort of major conflict. Um, I think personally, um, I don't think it's the United Nations that has really stopped a third world war happening. I think it's nuclear weapons. Countries are too frightened to start a major war against other major countries because they know what the consequences would be. It would be huge devastation
The,
of not only the enemy, but themselves.
the nuclear weapons could be used and the planet will be destroyed.
There would certainly be huge consequences. I mean, the planet as a planet is going to continue, but there would be a lot of nuclear pollution which would set life back or change life. And I think that that's probably one of the main reasons, if not the main reason why there hasn't.
Yeah, and another idea, I just remember the same training sessions we had with the Model United Nations. So another thing um, we thought of is that so basically right now three veto powers out of the five are in Europe, but objectively speaking, Europe is not what it used to be once when the United Nations organization was created. It's not as influential in the world right now as it used to be.
Mm,
So Asia and even Africa gain more relevance in the world.
yeah.
So let's say Africa is the second most populated continent in the world right now. but they don't have a single veto.
Mm,
It's it might be a reason why, but because they're not as developed as many countries in Europe right now.
yeah,
But um, the amount of people represented in the continent of Africa is much major than the number of people in Europe. Therefore, much more people are affected than in Africa by the decisions made by the Security Council than there are in Europe, which might be a reason, a good reason why they should have at least one veto country, let's say. So it's for example, there's not one veto, not a single veto power in the Middle East. The Middle East has huge relevance in the world peacekeeping right now, and the kind of the conflicts that are happening in the Middle East right now between Iran and Israel and Palestine and uh, Lebanon and all those countries. So it might also be useful to have one of the vetoes there. For example, if if more vetoes come into the thing, so if we expand it to like let's say 10 vetoes, including countries like India, or let's say we include Iran there or some other country, then if we have 10 of them, then it might be useful to then include the rule of at least two or three countries vetoing for it to be cancelled. Because if we talked about five countries, two countries agreeing on a veto would be hard. But if there's 10 countries in total, then agreeing between two of them or three of them might be realistic and kind of more fair, as to say, than if actually it's only Russia vetoing or only France vetoing.
mhm,
Because objectively speaking, let's say France, it's again, it's not the country that it used to be during the World War. It it lost its relevance because other countries lost gained relevance and political power and military power and economic power.
mhm.
Same as with Russia or UK.
Yeah, I mean, do you know how these five countries were chosen? So that's the
Yeah,
United.
the ones that won.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right that France is not. I mean, the UK is not a major power either, but it seemed to be in those days. But in fact, France originally wasn't. I mean, this is my understanding of the situation anyway. Originally, it was going to be United States, Russia, China, and the UK. And the UK was only there because Churchill was friends with Roosevelt, who invented the United Nations. So the UK really hardly belonged there. But that left four, and for some reason which I can't remember, they wanted five countries there, and France was just chosen a little bit arbitrarily as one of the victorious countries, but it never really was seen to deserve a veto. And in fact, France, I don't think has used the veto. It's put a constraint on itself not to use the veto. Can't remember exactly what the constraint is, but
No, every country has used the veto, but I think France was the one that least times used it.
more recently, it's hardly used it at all.
Yeah.
Um, and the United Kingdom also hardly ever uses it. Um, but certainly, the United States is very greedy over the use of it, and Russia.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so
I
there's
think
a.
Russia used it the most times, and then US used it the second most times.
Mm,
So
there's an
I actually wrote about it in the article in the second one I wrote for the website. Let me just find it quickly. Yeah, so the Russian Federation, including the Soviet Union, used the veto power 129 times, and the United States used it 89 times. And obviously, France might have used it maybe 10 times or something since the creation of United Nations.
So, what do you think that Coventry? United Nations Association should be doing.
Yeah, maybe you could go to the things like the London International Model UN and the one that is going to be held in Birmingham. Well, it was held last year. I don't know if it's going to be held this year, which is obviously Birmingham is closer, and kind of put a stand there and ask the people passing by, obviously the delegates that are participating in the Model United Nations, ask them if they want to be part of the United Nations Association of Coventry, and
Well, the trouble is that we're really aiming at Coventry people, and you're going to get students from all over, or young people from all over the place.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've got an idea there, which is that the United Nations Association itself, which is based in London, they've got an office in London, they should be or could be doing something to promote their branches. They do actually very little um, as far as supporting branches goes. So that's an idea. Maybe I should write to them and suggest it.
Yeah, well, another thing it could be because now everybody's kind of not interacting with people and not going to places but staying on their phone. Um, I think it'd be promoting the United Nations through TikTok because TikTok is the most popular thing right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're the second person to suggest that. So a student from Coventry, 16-year-old young lady, suggested that. And we did actually start a TikTok group, and I actually started an account. Somebody, can't remember who, produced some TikToks for us, I think 4 or 5, so we've published those. But I personally don't or didn't know anything about TikTok, so I started to try to learn, but didn't get very far. I know far more about producing videos for WhatsApp than for TikTok, but I mean, you're right that, I mean, what she said was, if you want to communicate with young people, that's the way to go, and she's probably right.
Yeah, the thing with TikTok is that it's really hard to get to a large audience, so it's really hard to get this outreach um, because uh, because of TikTok existing for a few years now and many accounts being
Yeah,
existing. Um, it's quite hard to
yeah,
become really popular,
yeah,
but getting maybe 500 views is not that hard. I think that's relevant to kind of start. And then TikTok also rewards the accounts who have high quality videos. So if you post something really high quality and people really engage with it, then you can easily upscale it to a few thousand, a few million, even a few million views. So yeah, um, I had the idea of creating videos for the TikTok account for United Nations association in Coventry. I haven't started yet. I'm still trying to find time for that.
yeah. But I mean, you do need some knowledge about TikTok well, I think what's the best way to promote your ideas. I mean, when I looked at TikTok, um, what struck me was that most of the videos seem to be just loads of swearing, which is obviously not something that we want to participate in.
No, no. Um, yeah, it just has to be something that will that people will engage with,
Yeah,
that people will find interesting. So, for example, the whole idea of United Nations is quite serious, obviously.
yeah,
But for example, students like me, students who are going to London International Model UN, there's thousands of us or hundreds of us.
yeah,
Therefore, there's people like me who find it appealing, who find it fun and interesting. So we kind of want to focus on that type of people because
yeah,
obviously old people don't use TikTok. It's mainly the young people. We should try and find interest in them. And yeah,
Not easy there, huh? You need to have experience and spend time, yeah, producing similar things so that you know what works and what doesn't. Yeah, I mean, for me, the simplest thing is to write articles on the website because I can just sit here and do it. But that doesn't work with TikTok, obviously. There's a lot
the
more.
problem is that not many people
No,
search and
yeah,
visit
no,
websites anymore.
no, no.
They find it boring. They want something
Yeah,
really fast and
yeah,
to have emotions from watching something.
that's right.
Want that fast dopamine.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. You've got some interesting ideas there. So I've made some notes. Anything else we need to talk about, do you think? I mean, do you talk to other young people, like people within the United Nations? Do they actually talk about the United Nations and problems that it's facing, or don't they bother?
Yeah, I think yeah, a lot of people actually, not only inside the modern United Nations society, but also people who are not linked to it. Like I hear people all the time talking about politics and different conflicts and how to resolve stuff around campus. So yeah,
So it is a topic people are concerned about.
yeah, we don't only have the Model United Nations Society, but there's similar stuff like so there's the Discourse Society where we kind of I'm also part of it. We kind of discuss relevant issues in the world. So um, the last thing we discussed is uh, can politics exist without ideology? Really interesting, and yes, similar stuff to that. And there's always also the Liberal Democrat Society on campus, the Conservative Society on campus. So yeah, there's quite a few
Yeah,
um, yeah things.
yeah,
I mean, it's not directly linked to the United Nations, but
yeah,
United Nations is quite uh, closely linked to politics, and
mm,
this is what is
yeah.
often discussed on campus.
And I mean, you've been talking about the model United Nations, but in fact, um, the society did change its name a few years ago to the United Nations Society, I think. And in fact, it did come into one of our schools, or I think a couple of our schools, and give presentations. So members of the United Nations Society of Warwick um, came into schools and did stuff. They had a Model United Nations demonstration at one point. But they haven't done, I think it depends on who's the chair and what their enthusiasms are, actually. A couple of years, was it last year or the year before? They wanted a speaker from the United Nations. So I contacted somebody.
Yeah, I think they're quite narrowly focused on that. So what we usually do is every week we come together for 2 hours and we kind of train the different parts of how a Model United Nation conference. So it's obviously
Yeah,
a simulation of the
yeah,
actual
yeah,
United Nations. But I think the Model United Nation has become a really popular thing around the world in the recent years,
yeah,
and this is what we actually
yeah,
come together to do. So we practice the speeches, the different um, procedures, the resolution writing, and the different motions and setting the agenda to a certain topic and
yeah,
things like that. And sometimes we have speakers being invited into campus. So recently we had the Modern United Nations Society inviting a diplomat from, I think it was Luxembourg in Greece. So it was like she was representing Luxembourg in Greece or something like that.
right, yeah,
And we also had a former politician from Turkey and they explained how to build a career in politics and international relations. I missed I missed half of it because I was in London that day in an open day for a firm, but they told me it was quite engaging and
Right.
insightful.
Right. So it's not all purely Model United Nations, and they do other things.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. But you say most of the time it's talking about Model United
Yeah,
Nations.
so that's the like the main focus, but
Yeah,
obviously they want to attract people
yeah,
from not really interested in Model United Nations, so they also host events about
right.
careers in politics and
Yeah,
different opportunities and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, I mean, I know a lot of people, for example, volunteer with us because they think they're going to go on and get a job in the United Nations. But in fact, that is quite a difficult thing to do. Um, and we've got articles, we've got pages on the website describing how to go about it and what problems are. Okie doke. Well, Danila, I think that's been interesting. It's given me a lot of things to think about. And yeah, if you find any time um, and you want to write something else for us, we'd be very glad to have your input. Your previous two articles were very well received, and they were,
Yeah, I'm glad.
yeah, good. Worth your time to do. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, no, it's a pleasure. Um, and hope to see you again before too long.